Okay, let's talk about installation and setup of MuseScore. It's super easy, but I just want to go over it. So if I go to musescore.org, I can just hit download, but there's a download button there here as well. If I can go to software, I get to this page. So I'm actually on musescore.org/en for English and then /download. So here I can see all the different versions, right? Here's the Windows version, here's the Mac version, and there's a Linux version as well, and then some other mostly Linux versions down here. They have tons of different versions for tons of different operating systems, more so than most software does. That's kind of something you find in open source software a lot, is that there's a lot of Linux and weird versions. If you don't know what Linux is, don't worry about it. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to download the Mac one, but if you're on Windows, download the Windows one. Just hit those buttons. Pretty simple, right? For me, and this is pretty much true on a Windows computer as well, I'm going to download this file and it's going to look like this after it downloads. And all this is telling me is this is the program. It wants me to drag it into my applications folder, which I've already done. So that's going to copy into my applications folder. And then I just need to go to my applications folder and launch it. So applications, and you can make shortcuts and do whatever you want to do, but just for the purpose of being thorough, here it is, MuseScore 2. I'm going to launch it. And for me, it's going to give me a little warning. The first time you launch it, that says this has been downloaded from the internet, blah, 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 just say yes. And that takes us here. So you might not see these. These are showing previous things I've opened. So you can just say create a new score, and then it's going to say give it a title. Let's call it class 1, whatever. And you can skip the stuff or fill it in, whatever you want. Next, I'm going to say a grand staff, give it a key. We'll go over all this in more detail in a minute. And we're in. That's it. That's all you need to do to install it. Now, with the playback stuff, there are some other things that you might want to do. You might want to take a visit to your preferences, worry about your MIDI setup a little bit. Actually, let's talk about our MIDI setup really quick. More on this when we get into putting notes into MuseScore, but for now, for MIDI setup, what that means is that I have a MIDI keyboard here in front of me, and that's just a keyboard. You know, it looks like a piano, kind of a keyboard, and it's connected via USB to my computer, and I want to be able to play notes into MuseScore. So what I need to do is, let's go to the preferences. Let's go to note input, enable MIDI input. That should be all you really need to do, is make sure that's checked. And then make sure your MIDI keyboard is already working with your computer. As long as that's all set up, and for me, I would do that by going into this audio MIDI setup and going to the MIDI studio, and that takes me here. And this shows all my MIDI stuff, which is a lot more than you probably see, and that's okay. But this is my keyboard, so everything's fine. I know it's working from here. So as long as it's working and MIDI is turned on in MuseScore, which it is by default, then you should be good to go. We'll talk more about MIDI input when we get into the inputting notes section. For now, that should be all you need to do. Okay, one more quick thing about playback tips, and then we'll be off and running.